So go ahead and fill me in on August.
Okay, so we bought her from a trainer.
Okay.
She's a Goldendoodle female, about a year, she'll be 2 in June.
Okay.
She's a family dog. You know, we got her, she's a little, when we got her, she's a little skittish. You know, meaning the wind would scare her, or when we take her for a walk, I mean, I have to teach her how to walk. She just stopped, she wouldn't want to go anywhere.
Okay.
She's still kind of like that sometimes. And then I think what happened was, I mean, she's a sweet angel. She, in our house, she's never, ever torn anything apart. She went, I mean, we crate trained her, trained her, and she never, like, even on the stairs, she never like runs down the stairs. She lets us go first, and then she comes and follows us as she's on the stairs. She's just been really great, but I think recently, there you go, good girl. She loves people way more than other dogs, but she's, I brought her to Tucker Pups, is where she goes for doggy daycare. Once a week I take her. It's never been an issue. She's boarded there before. And then, yes, she has a best friend that she goes for a walk with every day. Another dog that's like a poodle. And, but what I think what has happened is, my kids are home, we're home, but I'm with my kids during Zoom. And she has gotten used to being by the door at the window, and she's become extremely territorial. And I think it's because I'm upstairs, she's downstairs, and I haven't supervised her. So by the time I get downstairs, when she's going crazy, it's too late. You know, same thing with our backyard. You know, during the day, I'll let her just go out in the backyard. And now it's become, like, normally, she's the kind of dog, literally in our neighborhood, people line up to pet her. She's almost been like a therapy dog for some people during this time. She'll be out there, they'll just hang out, they'll pet her. They don't come in the yard, but she knows them now from walking by, and one of the ladies that walks by gives her a treat every day, you know, like makes her chicken, you know, but if it's a dog, she becomes like an insane maniac. And it started to change into, and this is recent, this is within the last month at least. It started to change too, as well as during our walk. We would go for a walk and she'd see another dog and she'd just go insane. And it was just really overwhelming and disheartening, because she's always been such, that aggression's never been, it's new, but I do think when I reflect on it that it's kind of been building up, because I've been allowing that territorial sense to come in. And so, you know, I've taken her to, you know, the basic obedience training and things like that, and I try to work with her. I don't want like some show dog. I just want to, you know, our family dog, you know, someone that listens, and is a part of our family and polite, you know, and meeting like civil with other dogs and people, and she pretty much is that way. But the thing about the door that's really scary is it's a double glass, like it's glass. It's like a foyer and then another door that's glass. And I'm afraid she could go through the window. You know, so I put a barrier there for now. But even with our walks, like, it used to be, you know, we go for a walk and it would just be a great experience. And now I'm extremely aware. And not that I wasn't before, but now I'm like, is there a dog? Is there not? You know, and I don't want to live that way. And like I said, we had a, you know, regular training, but I find the training is treat-based, which is fine for simple things, but I find it to be superficial. And I went to another training, I had another trainer, and basically they were like, use a clicker, and when you see another dog, redirect attention to you. You know, and I tried it, but when she's in a moment and sees something instantly, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
At all. And with my kids, I don't want, you know, it's dangerous. It's a dangerous situation. I'm super strong. I know how to, you know, I'm in the moment. I you know, I'm pretty aware, but accidents can happen.
Sure.
And usually my kids are walking with me, you know, I don't want that. And it was actually kind of sad because there was this one little old lady that I saw when we were walking. She's tiny. She's like, I love your dog, but somehow now she barks at me when I walk, you know. And I'm like, and as she was telling me this, a dog walked by and she went crazy, you know. And for some reason, these last few days, for some reason she's been listening and she'll look at the dog, but she won't go crazy. I'm like, oh, because you know I'm taking you to, you know, or something. But, and we have in our kitchen, the safest place for her in our house at night is the kitchen, just because it's easier for me too. We have a cat. She's okay with the cat. They tolerate each other. We got them around the same time, and I acclimated them to each other, but they're not like friends. She doesn't ever go after it, but if she also gets resource guarding.
Okay.
Not for food and not with humans, but with other animals. So if she had, even like the dog that we walk with every day, her best friend, she had a stick and he went to go for the stick and she didn't attack him, but she let him know it was her stick.
Sure.
You know?
She set a boundary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, it's those kinds of moments though that I don't, you know, I don't think I can really do anything. Like, I think if I had, you know, and then, so I was doing all this research because I was feeling very disheartened by this whole training idea of treats. And I'm like, you know, I was Googling dogs with, you know, training without treats and, you know.
Sure.
And I also Googled Goldendoodle aggression, you know, just to see if it's something. And so I saw this video of Richard Hines.
Yeah.
Where it was a Goldendoodle that was aggressive with humans.
Yeah, the lady with the bandana.
Yeah, she had a big house and, no, that was a bandana.
Was it an older or newer video? Like, did it look old or did it look new?
No, it was a younger doodle.
Okay. That might be a different one then. There was one that he did many years ago, that the dog would resource guard against the owner.
Oh.
And like she had cancer and stuff, and then like, that's why she has like a bandana in the video.
No, it wasn't her. But...
Yeah, okay. I think I know who you might be talking about. Anything else?
No, I mean, and then so I also found this guy in Louisville. I also found this guy in Canada, and I actually made an appointment, but then I saw you, and I'd rather see somebody in person than on
Zoom or something.
On Zoom, you know,
Sure.
It's not my, and he's in Canada. His name's John Wade. I don't know if you know. He's in London, Ontario, but it's the same kind of concept. Like, I don't know, I know you have the prong and e-collar, which I know you do that. I'm a little leery, but I'm open to trying, especially with how crazy she gets. I think she needs something in that moment, and I need to understand how to do it properly, or I need to, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm not, like, she's so sensitive. I would totally, like, even if it's at the lowest setting, something to stop her in a second. And I think she would be okay, and listen, and learn quick. It's just, there's not much I can do right now in that second when she gets crazy.
Sure. So, when it comes to prong and e-collar, the way we use it isn't the way most people think.
Okay.
Okay, so the way you're thinking right now is punishment based.
Right, and I don't want to, I just want her to stop being in this moment and listen.
Correct. But that's...
Is that punishment?
Right, so if a dog is doing something and then the negative happens as they're doing the behavior. So it's like me growing up, I was spanked. Right, so if I talk back to my mom, I was spanked. So, you know, I call it a correction, but it's punishment.
Yeah.
Right? But it's meant to deter behavior.
Right.
And I'm thankful for it because it's why I'm disciplined.
I'm first generation, so I get that.
Sure. So with
is it okay if I let her leash go?
No, because the reason I don't close this is because it'll get too hot in here.
Oh, okay.
And then because of these vents here. It's either too hot or too cold.
Oh, okay.
But then also dogs will be coming through here. So,
Okay.
here, the reason why e-collar and prong collars are effective is because dogs are physical animals. So going to that moment when you said the dog, when she had a stick and the other animal came near her, and she didn't fight them, but she was like, "Arr," right? And she may have done a snapping motion and say like, "Look, I'll go there."
Oh, she totally did.
Right?
Yep.
That's physicality. So if she did something that another dog didn't like, that dog would nip or bite her, not because they're aggressive, because that's how they regulate each other. Okay? In our world, if someone does something you don't like, we would tell them to back off.
It's the way she's
or-
telling them, like, hey, I don't like what you're doing.
But as humans, we have words, we have conversation,
Yeah.
or we call the police and the police would take care of it.
Right.
Dogs don't have a police, and dogs don't have words, they use physicality. And e-collar and prong collar, or it means a physicality. Prong collar was designed to mimic a dog bite. That's why it looks the way it does. Okay.
Oh, okay.
E-collar, I think it's more so the notion that people think they're electrocuting their dog.
Yeah,
That kind of discourage
right.
people. It's not electricity. It's electric, but not electricity.
Is it like a vibration?
It's have you ever been to a chiropractor or physical therapist?
No.
Have you ever seen when they put the circles with wires on people's muscles?
Yeah.
The muscles?
Yeah.
That's an e-collar.
Okay.
So it's a muscle stimulator.
Okay.
You can go to literally CVS or Walgreens, go on the back section where it says like back pain management, and you'll see this thing that looks kind of like a bone, and it's called a TENS unit, T-E-N-S.
Okay.
And it's a small, slight current that only affects the areas we do contact with, and it just twitches the muscles.
Got
That's
it.
all it does. And the intensity of which it twitches the muscles just depends on the level of the current. Okay, so the e-collar is the same thing. It's a muscle stimulator. So you'll see the muscles here on the neck start to twitch because that's where it's making contact, but the dog doesn't feel anything anywhere else.
Yeah.
Not like if you stuck your finger in an outlet or
Right.
grab
No, I know.
electric wire, right?
Yeah.
That's or electric chair, that's electrocution.
Right.
So it's not that at all. It's just a muscle stimulator. So the reason why it's effective is because it's a means of physicality. So with the prong collar, if she was lunging and barking, what you would do is you would pop on the prong collar to create this biting motion with the prongs
Yeah.
to tell her don't do that.
Right.
Okay? Which dogs do with each other. But people, for whatever reason, think they're hurting or abusing the dog.
Right.
When really
Yeah.
you're just correcting them using their language, using the tool.
Uh-huh.
The e-collar, very similar, it stimulates the muscle and there's a level of discomfort. Ours goes 0 to 127 in increments of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 127.
Uh-huh.
Every dog's number is different.
Right.
Breed, size, sensitivity to things,
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Okay? I've had dogs, just like you said, like something, she'll listen really low, she's super sensitive. And it doesn't apply to this.
Okay.
You won't know until you start working with the dog.
Okay.
So like I could have two Rottweilers, 150 pounds,
And-
and one can be at 80 and one can be at 18.
Got it.
Okay, it's just dependent, breed, size, none of that stuff matters. It's just how does this dog perceive the tool,
Got it.
okay? So here, when it comes to the reactivity on leash, she needs to learn how to walk correctly. Okay, so harnesses tend to create, they tend to agitate more reactivity. Okay, so dogs have a thing called opposition reflex, which means when they feel tension, they want to go against it.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so typically when a dog becomes reactive, we tend to want to pull back, and that's actually what creates more reactivity.
Okay.
Okay, so in protection training,
I've heard that.
yes, in protection training, it's what we use to create controlled aggression. Is we'll put a harness on the dog. We have one person holding the dog back, or we have another person who's agitating the dog, making them aggressive so that we can harness it and control it.
Right.
Okay, and we start to reward that behavior.
Right.
So every time people see a dog, they tend to pull their dog away,
Right.
which creates agitation. And you keep repeating this, and over the course of time, it can create reactivity or aggression. So people are kind of unintentionally making their dogs,
Sure.
protection dogs, right? So here, when trained to walk correctly, like in this case, I'm going to assume that that's actually what's going to fix the problem.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that I'm not going out and saying, okay, be a bad girl, and we're going to punish you. I'm saying we're going to teach you how to do this correctly, and that should indirectly fix the problem. Okay. So my style of heel is very strict. I take 5 steps, the dog takes 5 steps. I take 3 steps, the dog takes 3 steps. When I stop, they automatically sit. I don't care what's going on. I don't
Okay.
care if there's a parade of dogs going by.
Right.
I don't care if we're at Home Depot or Oz Park.
Right.
I want that level of focus, right?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to create a robot here.
Yeah.
But you have to have meaningful control in order for her to be incentivized to change her behavior, okay? So in theory, the heel is what fixes the reactivity, because now there's no tension, now there's no frustration, but also it allows us to implement discipline without confrontation, okay? So discipline would be every time she feels the contraction of the collar, that's discipline, okay? And like literally this, I had a new client today. They have a husky, and she was so overstimulated, she was barking and whining, just craziness and jumping all over the place. Literally 5 minutes later, she was doing this.
Yeah.
Okay, and all we did was a few minutes of e-collar heel, and the lady's like, this is crazy. She's like, I've never seen her relax like this. And I was like, because of discipline.
Yeah.
Because we're removing options, and we're teaching her how to focus and how to turn off all that outside stimuli, which then allows the dog to settle, you know. So we always start with that first with a case like this, and we go, what does it fix? Okay?
All right, I'll get quiet.
So, let's say class 1, so you know, pull her in towards you.
August?
Pull her in, yep. And what we're gonna do is pull her in towards you. There you go, that's fine, right there. Is week 1, we always teach heel. And I go, what does this fix? Okay? Week 2, you come back and you're my feedback. And you might say, Jesse, man, the 90% of reactivity is gone. And I'll say, where are you seeing that last 10%? And you might say, oh, dogs behind fences, barking at her. I go, oh, that makes sense. We're gonna do the second half of heel. We're gonna make a couple adjustments. You're gonna do this when you see dogs behind fences. We'll see you in a week, okay? And then you come back a week later, how are we doing? Oh, even better, but we're still struggling with this, right? So what I'm picking up from you and your dog, and what you've told me, is that it's gonna be pretty straightforward with the reactivity on leash, okay? Reactivity within the home or within the yard is a separate issue, okay? Because on leash, she would technically be under command, right? So people will usually comment like, well, Jesse, I don't need my dog to like be like this, but I just want them not to pull as much.
She does not pull. She sits. She walks. Like if anything, I have to pull her. That's the kind of dog she's always been. Is like she'll just stop in the middle of nowhere and not want to move. But she's pretty good with, you know, I try and keep, you know, a very loose leash when we walk, so that she doesn't feel that tension from me.
That's good.
But anyway, go on.
It's typically a little bit like, I don't need my dog in a tight heel, I just don't want them to pull as much. But for dogs, there's no gray area. It's either they're pulling or they're not pulling, right? They're barking or they're not barking. There's not this like, you can pull up until this much, and then I don't want you to do it anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Like with like a human. So I would do that first and see what that fixes, okay? Just teach the heel. I'm positive that the reactivity on leash is not a problem, pretty straightforward. If that doesn't work, then we do the direct approach. So we have direct and indirect.
Okay.
Indirect is when we teach the dog what to do, and with discipline, what does this fix, okay? And if there's any residual reactivity that is not fixing, now she just needs to be corrected for the behavior itself, okay? So let's say there's a dog behind the fence that's barking, she's barking at the dog, and we go, okay, heel didn't fix this problem. Well, when she responds to the dog, you would then apply a correction to tell her, you don't bark at dogs, right? So then she goes, oh, I could do the behavior, but then something unpleasant is gonna happen, but then it goes away if I don't bark at the dog. But if I don't bark at the dog, if the dog is barking at me, nothing happens, so there's no need to bark at the dog. But that's how dog logic works, okay?
Sure.
And we repeat that, she walks past the dog, no barking, great, we continue on our walk, okay? So, because another dog, if she were to be barking at them, they're like, I don't want you barking at me, they would just bite her, right? That's their language.
Right.
Humans, so with the treats and the redirection, the problem is in the city of Chicago, like, you can just turn a corner, you're already over threshold.
I know.
It's like, in my words, impossible to like maintain under threshold in this kind of environment.
I know.
If you live out in the suburbs, sure, probably a lot easier, much more spacious, right?
Yeah.
But not within the city, and it's
I know.
super common with my clients.
I know, and then for me, it's like I don't want to always have to cross the street.
Sure,
just
to
in
avoid
case,
the.
and and then who knows? And there's a dog there, then I have to cross again.
Yeah,
or-
and you're kind of stuck, you know?
Yeah.
So, so we see what happens there. Okay, so regardless, there's an answer. My assumption is once we teach her how to walk correctly, it's probably gonna fix a bulk of the issues on leash, okay? And it's not to say that she always has to be in a tight heel.
Yeah.
You can give her permission to be free and, do a loose walk and stuff, but your dog becomes what you practice with them.
Yeah.
So if you practice to do a lot of do what you want, she's gonna be a do what you want kind of dog.
Yeah.
If I practice you're gonna do what I tell you to do, and I'm gonna give you permission to be a free dog,
Yeah.
you're gonna get that kind of dog, okay? The stuff in the house like this, right, like the alert bark and everything,
The alert, yeah.
the barking in the home and the barking within the fence, is that correct?
Yeah.
Is territorial behavior, like,
Yeah.
it's technically normal.
Yeah, I agree.
But you can always disagree with things. So here, when it comes to the reactivity, it would simply, like, we wouldn't use a command or obedience there,
Okay.
sit down, place, or anything like that,
No.
because
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with the behavior. Okay, so think about it, it's like if you see someone stealing something and you're like, hey, do math. Like, math has nothing to do with stealing. There has to be
Right.
an aversive, right?
Right.
Cops come in and arrest them, you go to jail.
Right.
To deter them from doing that again. So for dogs, if she's being reactive against what we call fence reactivity,
Yeah.
it's just stopping the behavior. I don't care what you do, but don't bark at dogs walking by the yard.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
No, that's exactly what same thing with the delivery people coming,
Sure. So, and with the delivery people, is she in the house when they come in, or is she like in the yard when they come into the yard, but they don't come into the yard when she's there?
No one comes in the yard, no one comes in the house, but they'll come onto our porch and drop off a package, or whatever it is, anyone. She knows the truck. She'll see a truck on the street now and feel like,
She's already parked.
yeah, she's already like, oh, I know you and I know that sound.
Sure, so there, it would be a direct approach of, an aversive consequence to deter her from doing that behavior,
Right, yeah.
okay? Now, the way I would look at this is, if I'm in the yard with her, I wouldn't want her barking,
No.
because I'm in the yard with her, I'm present, there's no need for you to alert me.
Mhm.
If I'm in the home, however, and she's outside unattended, I would expect her to bark. If you go, no, Jesse, we don't want her to bark at all, then I go, you can do that too.
Mhm.
But that's how it makes sense to work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like my dogs, when I was in Texas and I had a yard, if I was in the yard with them and you walk past the yard, they would run up, but they would just look at you, but they wouldn't do anything. If I went in the house, they would start barking at you. If they were barking at you and I walked out as they were barking at you, they would shut up.
See,
Right?
yeah,
So dogs are, because it's all instinct.
yeah,
Okay, so the territorial behavior is healthy, it's security. But as a human, you're like, that's the neighbor's dog.
Yeah.
That's the neighbor, that's the sweet old lady, right?
Right.
But for her, she's just like, hey, this is my yard and I'm letting you know there's a dog here, okay? Because dogs aren't, they're pretty, once they make a decision, they're pretty black and white about it, okay? So you can always, of course, disagree with her. And I'm not a big fan of unattended dogs in the yard.
no, I know,
For a couple of reasons. One, people steal dogs.
I know.
Two,
I have locks on both of them, but yes.
sure. Two, let's say she's barking, right? And then somebody just, they're not thinking, because it's a sweet dog, like she's just barking. If she were to bite them, right? You're technically, you are liable.
Yeah.
Okay, so even in the city of Chicago, if your dog is off leash, you're liable, even on your own property. And people are usually surprised by that. They're like, really, if my dog bites someone like in my yard, like coming in my yard or something that I didn't invite, I'm liable. I'm like, yeah, that's how the law is written.
Yeah.
So here, in my book, I always have dogs be attended if you're going to be in the yard.
I know.
But then I don't personally care. You can have your dog in the yard. My logic is if she's unattended, she's going to bark because you're going to kill security to a degree. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you want us to stop the behavior, we absolutely can.
Mm.
Okay. Your house, your rules is what I always tell everybody. Some people say like, Jesse, I don't want the dog barking out the window, period. And we go, sure. We'll correct it. Just know you're losing a little bit of security there, right?
Yeah.
Or they go, Jesse, I don't want my dog to bark at like kids and strollers and stuff like that. But if it's someone walking onto the yard, I want the dog to bark at it. I'm like, sure, we can do that. Like dogs can be very nuanced. You just have to be clear in what the rules are.
Yeah.
Okay,
For
like
me,
you bark.
I never wanted a guard dog. That's why we got a Goldendoodle. They were like, if you get don't think you're getting a guard dog if you get a Goldendoodle. I'm like, oh, that's fine. I don't care. I just want a family dog.
Sure, but Goldendoodle, Golden Retriever, whatever, the territorial behavior is
It's just an
instinctual.
instinct for any animal.
And yeah, I have had come across some dogs that have zero territorial behavior, but it's rare.
Yeah.
Most dogs will alert bark when they hear something.
Yeah.
So we have the three, like the in-home reactivity, defense reactivity, and the leash reactivity. Is there anything else you're trying to accomplish with her?
No, I mean, I think a part of it is, recall,
Okay, sure.
right? And I think that's a part of just, again, being treat-based training. I don't think, like, she'll come. But, just like, it's not 100%. I'm not, I don't trust that she'll come 100% of the time.
Sure. Anything else?
No.
Okay. So that makes things a little bit easier then. Because
Do you think should there be anything else? You think, I don't know.
It just depends.
I mean, you see her, I don't know.
I have 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs.
Okay.
Right? So like if you hadn't said recall, I was going to tell you 3 classes. Okay? Because it's the 3-week class is specifically for leash reactivity.
Okay.
Okay? But then you mentioned recall. So think of 3 weeks as I just want to walk my dog.
Yeah. Okay.
6 weeks is I want to walk my dog and take my dog places and they can come back. Right?
Okay.
9 week is walk my dog, go to the dog park, go to restaurants. And then 12 week is we do all that, plus we go hiking, we go to the dog beach, our dogs will be off leash in unenclosed areas. We do everything with our dog. Okay, that's how like the programs kind of work.
Okay.
So with what you've told me, you're like in the 6th class range.
Okay.
Okay, so it's 2 classes on the heel. What does that fix with the reactivity? If everything's going great, by the 3rd class we're going into recall. Because recall tends to take the longest for people to teach because it requires you to go somewhere.
Right.
You gotta go to the park, let her be a dog, call her away from squirrels, call her away from play,
Right.
And so that takes longer to teach and prove.
Absolutely.
So that's typically 2 classes in itself, and I'm teaching you, right? So don't expect it should be done by the end of the 6 classes.
No.
It's
It's
just
like
I'm
you're
taught
teaching me
you.
how to teach her.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That's why I need somebody in person, like.
Sure. Classes 5 and 6 are variables. So like, let's say the reactivity is not as straightforward as I thought it was gonna be.
Right, like
We
what
have
if
a-
I let her off leash and then,
Exactly, so that's where we can cover those things. Or we can use a class on how I teach you how to correct her behavior. So it's like I'm teaching you how to discipline your dog essentially.
Yeah.
Because there's obedience and then there's behavior.
Right.
Obedience is do this, behavior is don't do that.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so,
That's a nice way of putting it.
I'll do this and don't do that.
Yeah.
Because that's actually how it works.
Yeah.
Typically, when people come in for obedience, they're actually looking for behavior.
Yeah.
Most of the people I see, they're like, I just don't want my dog to like do this and don't do that and do this. I'm like, that's not obedience, it's behavior.
Right.
So, that's what I would suggest for you, is probably 6 classes, 2 and 2, and that leaves 2. And if everything's going great, then we can teach something else like, stationary control, which would allow you to take it to a restaurant. It's just, I don't know. I don't go by, this is Goldendoodle, it's gonna be easy, because it can work a number of different ways.
No, totally. Yeah, she's smart, meaning any training I have done, she's pretty good, but she's also, sometimes I don't feel like listening to you.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's because, so with positive only, if you're like, hey, come over here, and you have something for her, and she's like, nah,
Yeah.
there's no consequence.
Right.
The consequence is you're not gonna get this, but she doesn't understand that as a consequence.
No.
She's not thinking like, I'm missing out on this opportunity.
Right.
Right? She's like, whatever, and she continues to do her thing.
Yeah.
That's where aversives come into play.
Yeah.
So, aversives are meant to deter things, but with the e-collar and the prompt collar, we can actually use them to teach things as well. Okay? So the way we operate now is everything is verbal instruction.
Is it okay if?
Yeah, that's fine. Everything is verbal instruction. So I don't even touch the dog really anymore. You show up, you have your collar and everything, you have her on a leash, and I coach you through everything. Okay, so it's all hands on. Nothing is
That's
tied
all
to
I
me.
need. That's all I,
Sure.
Yeah.
It's just I guide you through it. You
Yeah.
have the information. Go practice.
Absolutely.
Okay. You would simply just do your training as you live your life with her.
Yeah.
So every time you go on a walk, that's your training walk now. When you go to the park, like let's say you have time to like walk over to the park and practice recall, then you practice recall. That's one, of course, that requires you to go somewhere to try to make it as realistic as possible.
No, totally. We go on forest preserve walks. We do things like that,
Sure, yeah.
and so. It'd be nice to be able to do that. I mean, I know you still are technically supposed to have them on leash though, but sometimes when there's absolutely nobody there, I'll let her go with the leash on so that, you know. But it'd be nice for her to be able to just be free sometimes, you know?
Sure, and so the purpose of control is freedom.
Right, right.
You know,
I have 2 kids, I completely agree.
right? Like,
It's the
so
same thing.
growing up, 'cause my mom was super strict,
Me
but
too.
because I was well behaved,
You got to do whatever you wanted.
yeah, because she's like, I trust you.
That same here.
Yeah, so it's the same thing for dogs.
Yeah.
Control allows you to have more freedom with your dog.
Yeah.
Because people are concerned, like, oh, like I'm going to create a robot or something. Like, you're not creating a robot. You know, it's just when you say something, your dog can do it.
Yeah.
And then when you say, okay, now you're free, then your dog can be free.
Right.
So
That's it. I just want her to have a happy life too, you know, because you even see the smile on her face when she's outside doing her, you know.
sure,
like-
she's having fun.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like things to expect, is if we know she's a flighty dog, like you said, she'll
She's a
start
little
walking,
flighty,
right? Is you're probably going to see kind of an increase of that behavior, okay,
Oh, yeah?
as you're working with her. It's
Really?
normal because her her stress response is flight.
Yeah.
So we call her as a stressor. So what we're going to see is flight response.
I had once used a pet, you know, that pet corrector.
Sure.
So I was
The
going to
spray?
go try that. Yeah, the one like makes a hissing sound, and it freaked her out.
Yeah.
She like barked at me because
Mhm.
she knew it came from me somewhere. She was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, right. So that's kind of a fear flight
Yeah,
response.
and I think that's where her barking comes from with other dogs. It's more of a fear-based, I think.
Yeah, it comes from somewhere, and I was going to mention earlier that all that stuff from what you mentioned when you first got her.
Yeah,
I was
I think
like,
it's
this is a
fear-based.
fear-based type dog, yeah. So you're going to see kind of an influx, okay?
Mhm.
But as you expose her to the collar, it's actually going to help build her confidence,
Okay.
okay? Because we can counter flight. So like, let's say she goes, I don't want to walk, and she just stops walking and shuts down. We can use the collar to make her
Walk.
move forward,
Okay.
okay? So
She
she's
does do
not
that.
giving in to that response, because every time she stops walking, or every time she decides like, no, I'm not gonna do this, and you go with it,
Yeah.
you just reinforce the
I
behavior.
know, I know, I know. Like I said, I have kids, and it's the same thing with the treat-based. I'm like, I don't give candy to my kids to listen.
Yeah, right? Like, I
Really?
wasn't like giving positive things for like not breaking windows, like, it was like, just don't break windows, you
Right.
know?
It's
But
just-
for dogs, it's weird.
I need
That's
to
the
be
only
more
thing.
of the leader, but yeah,
So yeah, and that's how I tell people to look at it, is parent-child.
yeah.
Right, and as a parent, we put rules on our children, and we discipline them and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But discipline for a child can be timeout, it can
Yeah.
be, you know, withholding something of value,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, a lot of
Or
stuff
just-
like
or
that.
just, you know, my mom would just give me a look and I knew, that's all I needed.
Yeah,
You know?
the same
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's normal, okay?
So
It's not
the
making the
behavior
dog,
change,
yeah, it's not making her
More
fearful.
aggressive or.
It's just pulling out what's already there.
Mhm.
But what happens, so it's like a threshold.
Yeah,
You expose the dog to a stressor.
yeah.
And then what happens is people feel bad and they tend to lay off, so they don't kind of work the dog over.
Over it.
Okay, so like let's say the first class we see her, she might be shaking, she might be salivating, she might just be stressed. Okay,
Oh, okay.
it's normal. I'll go practice this on your walks. So like everybody typically walks their dogs 3 times a day.
Yeah,
So that's 3 times a day you get to expose her,
Right.
right, and practice. And also she's also going for walks, so there's a positive there, right? Is that's what gets her over it. Okay, so like firefighters don't learn how to fight fires by not fighting fires.
yeah.
Right,
No,
sure.
no, I know, right? Same like just exposing to that situation, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So then she goes, oh, this isn't so bad. It's just part of life. Like me being spanked, like it sucked,
Yeah.
but it was just part of life.
right.
You know, and
Yeah.
it toughened me up.
Mhm.
And dogs actually toughen up their puppies by nipping and biting at them
Mhm.
and using physicality. And then when people get their puppies at 2 months, they don't do that. So if the puppy is a weak puppy, they never toughen up because they no longer are getting that from their litter or their mom, right? So then the dog grows up and then we get behavioral issues.
Mhm.
Okay, so even puppies at 2 months, you can correct, but people think you can't correct because they're thinking of them as infants.
Yeah,
An infant you can't correct because we have no motor skills,
Right.
right? We have no concept. But once we hit that 2 to like 3 to 4 year old range, then we start developing that concept of the stuff that we can and can't do.
Mhm.
Dogs learn that concept as young as 3 to 4 weeks.
yeah.
Okay, in terms of what's allowed and what's not allowed. So it's normal, it's part of the process, you just keep exposing, okay?
Now, what about having like the e-collar and the dog, same thing with the treat training in the sense of like,
Yeah.
I have this on and so I know I gotta listen, but if I don't have it on, I'm,
Yes, so
how do you deal with that? I read a little bit, but I was just wondering.
With
Perspective.
any motivator that you use, whether it's food or negative or aversive, when you remove the motivator, performance is going to dip.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I don't pay my employees, do you think they're still going to show up to work? Right. And then for me, if I didn't do my homework, if I didn't do my chores, I get spanked.
Right.
That was my motivator. I don't want to get spanked, so I'm going to do these things. Right. Is for dogs, when they correct each other, the reason why once they correct each other, it's kind of established, is because their tool of correction is right there.
Yeah.
Okay? Our tool of correction is external.
Yeah.
It's the collar, it's the prong collar, it's the pet corrector, right? Is, okay, do you drive?
Yes.
Do you go on the expressway?
Yes.
Do you go speed limit?
No, I go over the speed limit.
Okay, but you're aware that we're not supposed to, right?
Right.
So if you see a squad car, what happens?
You slow down.
Correct, because you don't want now there's sort of consequence.
Okay.
So think of the e-collar as a cop on the collar. When it's present, she's going to, of course, behave better. Whether you're using food or whether you're using the e-collar, it's going to be the same.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
Because so people will ask, Jesse, the dog should learn to be a good dog. And well, dogs don't do that. That is a human thing. I could, let's say I was the worst child. And then one day I'm just like, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to change. I can proactively make that decision. She won't do that. She find a little piece of kibble there. We train puppies in here, so she might have found a piece of kibble.
It's okay.
Is she won't wake up one day and just think like, you know what, I've driven my mom crazy enough.
Right.
I'm gonna change my ways, right? She's just, dogs are reactive.
Yeah.
So they're reacting to what's going on within the environment, right? So if there's no dogs around, she's chill.
Yeah.
Dogs around, she's barking, right?
Yeah.
She sees a dog, she's got the collar on, no barking. She sees a dog, no collar on, barking, right? It's opportunistic behavior. All animals do it. If we can get away with something, we will.
Yeah.
So it just means that anytime you walk her, you would need your collar. If she were to be off leash anywhere, you would need your collar. The other thing is you can't account for life. So like, let's say she's off leash and someone blows up a firework.
No, totally.
She's already a flighty dog.
Yeah.
But with the collar on, you have a higher chance of like being able to regain that control.
Yeah.
And this has happened to clients. It's like the most common thing that happens to people is they're at the park and someone blows up a firework.
I know, because it's everywhere in Chicago.
Right.
Yes.
So it's not that it's on and you're always having to use it. It's that
just
of course
only
it's
use
on.
it when you need it.
Right.
Kind of thing.
That
Yeah.
if you've done the training, you shouldn't need to be using it all the time.
Got it.
And that's kind of like, that's how I know.
It's just like an insurance policy.
Exactly. When it comes to correcting the behavior within the home or in the yard, the yard's a little bit trickier. And again, if she's going to be an attendant, then
It's just because she likes to sit out. Like she has that, she just likes to sit there and like be outside and watch people. And I'm like, oh, that's, and I'm inside and then, but.
Right. So I don't care if she's outside. But then you want to make the decision of, am I going to let her bark or not?
Right.
Okay, and if the answer is you're not going to let her bark, then you would send her out with the collar on. So this way, if she does bark, you can correct her, and eventually she goes, all right,
I'm not doing it.
I can't do that anymore. Because, and then you can correct her while being inside. You don't need to even look at her. You just hear her bark, you just correct. Okay? And eventually she'll think, okay, when I'm in the yard, I can't bark, but again, contingent on, is that cop here or not?
Got it.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's like kind of the best way to put it. Because
Yeah.
even as humans, like I tell people, like, but the dog should be a good dog. I'm like, not when humans like obey the laws like we're supposed to, right?
No,
So-
totally. And yeah, I mean, I know she's a dog. I'm not like this crazy, like, oh, you can't bark. I get it. It's her instinct. It's just when she goes insane
Sure.
is when I want that to stop.
Right. But so that's the gray area though.
Yeah.
Because you're saying, hey, you can bark, but just don't bark this intensely.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember earlier, I think it was kind of like I don't care if my dog pulls, I just want him to pull this much.
Yeah.
That's that gray area. So that's why I was like, you either have her barking or there's no barking.
Got it.
Okay, or it's no barking at these particular things, but you can bark at this thing. Because that's very specific.
Yeah.
That's something that she can recognize. I don't
I
bark at little
understand.
children, I don't bark at dogs, I don't bark at old ladies, but I can bark at men. Like that's
Right.
something is that it's easy for her to recognize and
Yeah.
differentiate, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
When it comes to barking within the home, I would teach you or show you how to correct her without using the collar.
Okay.
Okay, because it's just within the home.
Yeah.
Because if you put the collar to correct her barking within the home, then you become dependent on it, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like me growing up. like, if my mom didn't have a belt, and she'd just spank me with like the sandal or whatever, right?
Yeah,
So
with
it
a
wasn't like,
spoon
just
up
because
your
you got
head.
a belt around, doesn't mean I can't spank you, right? So it's kind of the same kind of concept where it's like, just because you don't have the collar on, doesn't mean I can't discipline you.
Yeah.
But the difference is, outside, it's difficult to correct that way.
Yeah.
And with the e-call, it's easy because it's just press a button.
Yeah.
Okay. Plus, you get on and off each control.
Uh-huh.
Other questions?
No. I mean, I think the 6 weeks sounds like a good idea. I mean, I really like to learn how to do the like the recall, and the leash reactivity, and, you know, I can work on the home thing. What has helped in is just blocking her view from that area.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we haven't had people come to our home just because we have nobody coming to visit us, really.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's our backyard, you know, friends or whatever during the pandemic. But I would like her to, you know, again, it's a safety issue. I don't want her, like, she's strong. She could go through that window.
Oh, yeah, and I've actually had, I was going to say that, it's happened to a couple of clients over the
Really?
years.
Oh my
Actually,
gosh.
when, she actually had been picked up, it was a little Doberman, her name's Moose, and she broke her paw because she jumped out a window barking. And I had another client, the Samoyed, and he jumped out of the top of a barn. Yeah, so it happens.
Yeah. Is there any, like, should I teach, you know, and I'm okay with working on her at home and like, you know, I saw you had the thing, they say teach play. So,
Oh, sure.
you know, and that kind of thing, but it's almost like, again, when I get to that moment, she's already crazy.
Yeah, so when it comes to remote collar, the easiest approach is always prevention.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why we're doing the healing exercise, because that's
Got it.
technically prevention. But we can also do intervention, which is my dog's at 11, and I need to stop the behavior. It just means you might need more power to
Okay.
override the
Okay.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so ideally.
Okay, we'll do the 6 and we'll see how that goes, and I'll work on, you know, I think if I worked on people coming to the house and knocking on the door and being there when that happens, you know, just practicing with her that it's okay that someone's coming to the door.
So with people coming in, and knocking at the door, you have two approaches. Technically, it's like what you said with the place command.
Yeah.
Or two, we teach an exercise where you're communicating with her and you're telling her like, hey, I know someone is here, but you can stop barking now and you can relax.
Yeah.
And it's more body language based,
Okay.
paired with collar, because
That's fine too. Yeah, that sounds better.
Because even if you placed her, mentally she'll still be territorial.
Yeah.
Right, but she's stationary because she knows if you say place, she can't.
Well, right, she's ready to just jump, like.
Yeah, so as soon as you release her, all of a sudden she's back to doing what she was doing.
Girl.
There's no right or
Sure, they
wrong.
want the treat.
There's no right or wrong. It's just what's going to work for that particular,
Yeah.
situation. But yeah, that's something else that could be covered as well if everything's going smoothly. When it comes to door reactivity like that, that's going to be a forever thing. Because at 6 o'clock you have your guest coming over. So at 5:45, if you hear a knock, you're going to assume that's probably my guest a little early. She will never tie that people knocking on the door is going to be someone you've invited.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're always going to get that initial territorial bark, but you'll have a means of de-escalating her.
Yeah.
And shutting her down to like let her know like, hey, thanks for letting me know, but you can chill now.
Yeah.
And then the guest comes in, and then if she's great, then you can remove your tools. So like it can work a number of different ways.
Okay.
I don't know until we actually start working on things.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. No, that sounds great. Like I said, I just need, this treat-based training is just not, it doesn't sit with me. It doesn't make sense to me. It worked for just.
Well, it works for like,
basics.
if you say sit and she sits and you give her a treat, it's like, yeah, do that again. But the problem it has is, well, if she gets up, what's the consequence?
No, for sure,
Mhm.
and no, like I said, I've done so much research. I was in a bad spot last week where I was just like, I just felt very overwhelmed and sad,
Mhm.
like, I have this great dog and yet now I feel like I can't even go outside and,
Sure.
like it's that feeling and I know that I can work on it and fix it, but I don't have all the time in the world either, I have 2
Yeah.
kids, I've got, I can't all day just pack my treats and,
Sure.
it's just,
You'll be surprised
not
how quick
realistic.
this works. And
And
it's
I
not,
don't want a quick fix, but I don't want to spend my entire day.
yeah, well, it's not so much like a quick or easy fix, like there's work involved.
Yeah,
But the power of aversives is that they're meant to stop things. So have you ever touched a hot stove?
Yeah.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, right.
Right? So it's the same thing for dogs. And it's like for me, right, growing up, like, if I talk back to my mom once, my entire life.
Right.
Right?
I totally get it. Your mom and my mom has been friends.
So when I tell people, like, I was like, that's the power of a correction.
Yeah.
Right? I remember I was like, I think I was like 16. My mom said something, I said something back, and like within a split second, I was just black. Right? I was like, I got slapped in the face. And my mom was like, you're never gonna talk back to me, right? And I was just like, that was the first and last time I ever spoke back to my mom.
Yeah.
Because it was a very powerful correction, right? So dogs, it's the same way, but we're doing this at the press of a button, you know, because that's what I call a bite on a button, it's their language.
Yeah.
And but if she's doing something that we don't want and we apply that correction,
Yeah.
as long as it's an appropriate correction, it's meant to resonate and deter the behavior from happening again. But again, the problem is it's contingent on having something.
Yeah.
As opposed to my mom, she had her hands, so as long as she had her hands, she could correct me. So that's why, you know, dogs remain in check because they bite each other. Their correction is their mouths.
Yeah.
So that's why they're not depending on a tool to do that. So any other questions?
No, I think, you know, the only thing is I noticed on your site, you mentioned the e-collar, what kind you use.
Mm-hmm. Oh, like what would she need?
What's that?
Like what would she need, or?
Yeah, like, so like.
How much does she weigh?
She weighs 65, 70 pounds.
Okay, so she'd be on the Dog Show Black Edition. It's around 327-ish, I believe, with tax.
Okay.
They last a really long time. I've had mine for like 8 years, no
Okay.
issues. Waterproof system, both the
Waterproof, okay.
transmitter and the receiver. 1 mile range, so plenty of range for the standard family
Oh,
pet.
wow. Uh-huh.
And it's a rechargeable lithium battery. That's the most common thing that happens, is that it's like your cell phone, that the battery will give out
Okay.
after a few years. So then you can send it to be replaced, or you can go online and purchase one separately and just replace it yourself.
Uh-huh.
But it's in my opinion, the best training system there is. I've been
Yeah.
using it for 10 years.
Okay.
You can go on Amazon.
Would you send it to me? What it is like?
Yeah, Maria will send you all the information.
Okay,
So she'll
okay.
send you the breakdown for the 6-week, and then she'll also send you the link to the Black
She's
Edition.
great, by the way. Maria was really great.
She's my aunt.
Oh, she really, I mean, she was very responsive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, she gets a lot of compliments, so.
Yeah, good.
But yeah, it'd be the Dog Show Black Edition is meant for 70 pounds and over, so she's right at that cusp. Plus she's got a little bit of a denser coat. So
Yeah,
all
she
it
does.
means, it's the highest output color. Higher output means lower number.
Okay.
So like, I could use it on my Chihuahua.
Okay.
And he's 8
Okay.
pounds.
Okay. Will I
So-
be able to see and test and see how it feels on me too, just to, oh, you have them that I can try? I'd love to just.
I'll be right back. Okay?
Okay. Thank you. You're a good girl, I guess.
So this isn't the same model, it's the same output.
Okay.
This is the required model.
Yeah, you have to keep going. My friend, she has 2 doodles and she lives in New York,
Mhm.
but she also has 2 horses, chickens, and so she was using the e-collar. And anyway, and that's what made me think when you were saying you use it at night.
Sure. I believe they were telling me that there's a similar technology now that they use for horses.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, instead of like the spurs, it is
Ah.
like similar. So here I can actually feel this. Can you see that switch in my thumb there?
Yeah.
That's this.
Okay.
Okay, so I have it placed on my muscle
I'll
here,
get this way.
and it's to give you an exaggerated visual. It's just touching my muscle there.
Mhm.
So I have it set to 15. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take these 2 probes, you're gonna put them here, and then lightly press down.
And I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
Okay, so this is gonna be 15.
Okay.
Ready?
Oh, okay.
You feel that?
Yeah, I feel it.
Okay.
Ah.
I'm gonna go up 25. Okay, so it's 10 levels higher. Just to give you a difference, okay? 25.
Oh, I felt that.
There you go.
Maybe I'm sensitive.
And relax. You're good. Do you feel anything now?
No.
Great. So like cheaper models, you'll feel like a residual
Oh, okay.
sensation.
Uh-huh.
These, once it's done, it's done.
Okay.
There is no lingering,
It's just like a,
exactly. So every dog's different, and you want to think that she has her fur. Dogs are naturally physically resilient because they bite each other.
yeah.
They have a higher tolerance for discomfort. Her number could be 15.
How do we figure that out?
I hope you figure it out.
Okay.
We figured it out in the session,
Okay.
you know, where I'll help you recognize what's too high and what's too low,
Okay.
and how to condition it.
Okay.
And I'll give you a very structured kind of approach that you'll do so that for the first week as you're learning to teach her, but then also to teach yourself.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's gonna be me, but yeah,
Correct.
absolutely, I need to be taught.
I'll send you, once you're confirmed, you'll get an email from me
Okay,
or Enrique to, he's my other trainer, with some videos for you to watch to prep you for the lesson with me.
Oh, okay.
So you won't do anything with the videos, you just watch them.
just watch them.
So when you show up, you already have an idea of what we're doing, so we can kind of start the process and jump straight into the training.
Okay,
Okay?
yep.